Chapter 141. You're a beast. Finally overcoming Sun Qiong's attempts to struggle, Zhong Xian managed to knock him unconscious. Upon contact with the unconscious Sun Qiong, a book immediately appeared in Zhong Xian's mind. Only then did Zhong Xian understand how it worked. For those who were conscious, executing a movement, even if it wasn't a battle technique, would cause the compilation of a book on them. As time went by, the contents detailed inside would also change automatically. After all, humans were beings with learning capabilities, and as such, their flaws would constantly change. On the other hand, those who are unconscious are treated as objects. A book would be compiled upon coming into contact with them. The two scenarios do not conflict, and the difference was clear and simple. It was a matter of whether the person in question was conscious or not. Knowing that the library had such an ability, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. If he were to meet with another case like Ling Qianyu's wife, he just had to touch them. He wouldn't panic as he did this round. Old Master, an elder from Du clan, Du Muxuan, requests an audience. After waking up, Sun Qiong examined his body and after confirming that he hadn't been assaulted, heaved a sigh of relief. He took his leave hurriedly, but after a moment, came back to report. An elder from Du clan? Have him come in. Zhong Xian waved his hands and returned to his seat. Looks like the news regarding Ling Qianyu had spread rather quickly. Someone is already here to pay a visit. You say that you witnessed it yourself? Sun Qiong himself claimed that a master teacher resides in here. Outside, Du Miaoshuan turned to look at his son doubtfully. Due to his illness, his cultivation fell tremendously. As such, when he heard that a master teacher had come to visit, he lost his decorum immediately. But on his way here, he gradually calmed down and noticed suspicious points. Why would a master teacher suddenly appear here without any news? Furthermore, how could he be staying in such a small mansion? Also, a true master teacher has countless disciples and followers. There was no need for a master teacher to hire the boss of a realtor store as his butler. There were too many illogical parts to the story. Sun Qiong said it himself. Also, I witnessed the happenings with Ling Qianyu's wife personally. Du Yuan explained. Yuan. Du Miaoshuan nodded his head. Regardless of whether the other party was a true master teacher or not, this was a chance. If he turned out to be a fraud, he could choose to leave at any moment. The doors to the courtyard opened and Sun Qiong emerged. The old master happens to be free, please enter. Du Miaoshuan and Du Yuan exchanged a glance before entering the mansion. The mansion was decorated in the manner similar to how a Philistine merchant would, and there was nothing outstanding about it to him. The further Du Muxuan proceeded, the more he thought that the other party could be a fraud. Soon, they arrived at the main hall. Old Master, this is Elder Du Muxuan and his son, Du Yuan. Sun Qiong said. Yuan. Zhong Xian turned around and invited, please be seated. Yes. Du Miaoshuan and his son sat on the guest seats. At the same time, they secretly assessed the master teacher before them. He looked to be in his 40s, but his skin was smooth, so it was likely for him to be younger than he appeared to be. Gudding, Du Miaoshuan's heart skipped a beat. The man had concealed his appearance. When he was younger, he once left to accumulate worldly experience and had opened his eyes to many different things. He had once seen such a face-changing technique. If he were a real master teacher, why would he change his appearance? Clearly, he was a fake. Perhaps, he might be working together with Ling Qianyu, and this inexperienced son of his took it for real. As such, his heart chilled and his face darkened. Noticing his expression, Zhong Xian felt a little dismal. Didn't this fellow come over after hearing how he helped Ling Qianyu? Why was he displaying such an attitude to a master teacher? He remained silent, and Du Muxuan didn't speak either. As such, the air in the main hall stilled and the atmosphere grew awkward. It's like that, my father had once fallen severely ill and it caused a great fall in his cultivation. After hearing that Xianxia is here, we came over hoping that Xianxia could take a look to see if there's possible a remedy for his problem. Seeing that his father remained silent, Du Yuan hurriedly spoke up, full of anxiety. Wasn't father very excited on the way here? Why isn't he speaking now that he had arrived? It would be terrible if we offend Xianxia because of this. Am I a physician? Zhongxian lifted his eyebrows in displeasure. Since he was feigning as a master teacher, he had to carry the prestige of one. Given how the other party clearly doubted his identity, if he were to anxiously go straight into treating the other party, wouldn't that be unbefitting of his status? No. That's not it. Du Yuan was taken aback. He tugged on his father's sleeves immediately. Father. Oh. My son didn't put his words properly. Please forgive him. Upon confirming that the fellow before him was a fraud, Du Muxuan no longer maintained the respectful attitude he held just before. Even so, he maintained basic courtesy. I met with some problems on my cultivation, and upon hearing of Xianxia's arrival, I could not help but make a visit hoping to learn from you. I hope that Xianxia would be so generous as to guide me along. Problems with your cultivation? Taking in the other party's words, Zhongxian was affirmative that the other party was suspicious of his identity. He frowned in puzzlement. Considering both his disposition and background, there shouldn't have been any problems at all. Why would the other party doubt him? It was no wonder that he wasn't able to realize his mistakes. He was a mere librarian and a true blue shut-in his previous life. The reason why he was able to convince Ling Qianyu was because the man did not possess much experience in the pugilistic world, and as such, he was blind to the flaws in his disguise. However, his camouflage was indeed insufficient to fool experienced and streetwise veterans such as Du Muxuan. Father. Detecting the lack of respect in his father's voice, Du Yuan started to panic. Father had always been a calm and prudent person. Why is he acting so recklessly today? The other party was a master teacher. Even Ling Qianyu had to kneel outside for an entire night before he could pay him a visit. It was already a blessing that we were allowed to enter immediately, so we should make full use of the opportunity. But why? Oh. What do you want to learn? Even though he was curious why the other party doubted his identity, Zhongxian wasn't worried in the least. Instead, he looked at him with interest. Even though he was pretending to be a master teacher, he wasn't truly deceiving his customers. With the Library of Heaven's Path, even a true master teacher would be unable to match his abilities in identifying one's problems. So, you doubt me? I will make you not dare to doubt me. I have just learned a new battle technique and found it hard to grasp. I hope that Xianxia can correct me. Immediately after finishing his sentence, Du Muxuan stood up. From what he sees, the person before him is definitely a fraud. Since you want to play off as a master teacher, I will execute a punching routine before you. When you find yourself stumped, I will tear off your disguise. Woo! Before Zhongxian could reply, Du Muxuan clenched his fists and started moving around the room as expected of an ex-genius. His fists were forceful and it brought an intense pressure to the audiences. His techniques and moves were also profound. Du Muxuan was a Pishua realm expert. Due to the severe illness, he plunged to Dingli realm. Even so, his strength didn't fall much in comparison. With his current strength, he would be able to match with even Pishua realm intermediate stage experts. It was no wonder that he was able to remain as an elder in Du clan despite being in just Dingli realm. He had true strength indeed. Who? After finishing his punching routine, he retracted his fists. Please offer me your guidance. Du Muxuan clasped his fists as he stared at Zhongxian with piercing eyes. He wanted to hear what would that fraud had to say. You want me to offer you my guidance? Aware of his thoughts, Zhongxian looked at him impassively. Yes. Du Muxuan replied calmly. Your fleeting fist is indeed incredible. You should have reached 3 dan for it already. However, you seem to be unable to control your strength effectively. If I'm not wrong. At this point, Zhongxian opened his eyes and a playful smile crept onto his lips. You are a beast. Chapter 142, Kneeling Outside What? Hearing those words, Sun Qiong and the others present in the room froze. Especially Du Yuan, his complexion turned awful immediately. Even if there were problems with his father's punching routine, how could an upright master teacher humiliate someone so casually and call him a beast? That was a personal attack. Xianxia, even if my father has offended you, there shouldn't be a need for you to insult him in such a manner. Gritting his teeth in anger, Du Yuan protested. Insult. Zhong Xian shook his head. Ask your father whether I am insulting him or not. Father. Du Yuan turned around to look at Du Miaoshuan. With a single glance, he was astonished. His father's body was trembling uncontrollably, and the calm that he possessed a moment ago had disappeared without a trace. I beg for Xianxia to save me. Putong. Just as doubts sped through his mind, he saw his father exclaim and kneel to the floor. Ah! Du Yuan was taken aback. A confused expression had also appeared on Sun Qiong's face. Is Du Miaoshuan mentally impaired? Or is he a masochist? His tone was so forceful a moment ago, but when he failed to perform as an expert, even getting insulted by the old master at that, he immediately kneeled down. Xiaoqiong, send our guests off. Ignoring Du Miaoshuan was kneeling on the floor, Zhong Xian waved them away. What a joke! What do you take me for? You doubted my identity and even tried to test me, and now you expect me to save you? Yes. Sun Qiong drew closer. Please leave. Please forgive me for being blind. I beg of you to give me a second chance. Upon hearing that Zhong Xian was evicting them, Du Miaoshuan was horror-struck. He kowtowed immediately while feeling intense regret over his actions. If only he had listened to his son, such a situation wouldn't have occurred. Doubting the identity of a master teacher was equivalent to challenging his authority and prestige. It was no wonder that he was displeased. Witnessing an influential elder of the Du clan kowtowing over and again, Sun Qiong was at a loss. He hurriedly shot a gaze at the old master. Why? Does my words not matter anymore? Zhong Xian frowned. Even though there was no anger in his voice was authoritative. Yes. Sun Qiong shuddered and gestured the other guards in hurriedly. Men, send Elder Du out. Hearing the commands, a few guard quickly walked over. Elder Du, please. The few guards stepped forward. Father. Du Yuan was still unable to comprehend the situation. Why did his father not feel anger upon being insulted as a beast by Xianxia, and instead, kneeled down and begged to be saved? I was too rash and I admit my fault. I will wait at the gates to beg for Xianxia's forgiveness. Du Miaoshuan kowtowed once more and walked out of his own accord. Du Yuan hurriedly followed behind him. The moment he passed the gates, he dropped to his knees in the middle of the street facing the mansion, motionless. Father. Du Yuan was about to go insane. No matter what, his father used to be a strong contender for the position of the clan head. Even if he is now an ordinary elder, he continues to hold a distinguished position as compared to the other elders. For him to kneel in the middle of the street. Why? Was it because the other party called him a beast? Could it be that father is truly a masochist? You kneel down as well. Before he could fully understand the situation, he heard Du Miaoshuan's cold voice sounding from beside him. Father. Du Yuan gritted his teeth. I don't understand. That Xianxia is a true master teacher. I had spoken inappropriately earlier and offended him. Thus, I have to apologize to him. A master teacher is someone that cannot be insulted, even in the slightest. Kneel down. We can only hope that he would forgive us because he is a true master teacher. Only he is capable of curing my illness. He can cure you. Du Yuan was confused. He didn't recall Xianxia mention anything related before. All he did was to insult him. You are a beast. Could that be the reason why father became so certain? The more he pondered, the more confused he got. Old master, Elder Du, and his son are kneeling before the gates. Hearing the subordinate's report, Sun Qiong looked at the old master with a strange expression. Is the old master capable of casting magic? Initially, Du Miaoshuan wasn't respectful at all and his tone wasn't polite either. Yet, after an insult, the other party was frightened out of his wits and kneeled down immediately. In fact, he even refused to be chased out. If he hadn't seen it for himself, he would have thought that it was nonsense. But the facts were laid clearly before him. He has no choice but to believe it. Is your family doing well? Touch your wife. You are a beast. Looks like master teachers like to speak in such a manner. Sun Qiong concluded based on his experience with the old master. Putting aside this Du Muxuan, Ling Qianyu seemed to be the same as well. Back then, when he broke the jade lion, the billionaire was filled with rage. In the end, the old master simply asked, "Is your family doing well?" before going ahead to request to touch the other party's wife. Looks like master teachers don't like to go about doing things the normal way. Instead, they preferred to beat around the bush and exaggerate matters. Yet, this method seemed to be extremely useful. Looks like these merchants and elders have to be dealt with the stick instead of the carrot. Maybe I should give it a try in the future. Sun Qiong's eyes lit up. In his view, the reason why Du Muxuan switched his attitude so quickly was because the old master got angry. Seems that in future, when he meets such people, he shouldn't act subserviently. Instead, he should speak imposingly and authoritatively. Only through this way can he instill respect in the other party. After all, wasn't Elder Du frightened to the point of kneeling down? Sun Qiong's thoughts became increasingly fertile. Next time, when the old master isn't around, I should give it a try. If it really works, the old master's impression of me might improve. Sun Qiong thought excitedly. Let them kneel. Not aware of what his butler had come up with in the blink of an eye, Zhongxian casually gestured. Old master, what do we do now? Sun Qiong asked. Zhongxian frowned. That was also what he was thinking. He couldn't just rely on the money others present to him in gratitude. Taking Ling Qianyu as an example, even though he gave 1 million in a single go, Zhongxian is still a long way off from reaching 20 million. But if he were to open his mouth to request for money, it would be unbefitting of his identity as a master teacher. Others would simply label him as a fraud. If he refused money and simply waited for others to thank him, how much could he earn? What if the other party thought that he, as a master teacher, cared not for material wealth but instead valued relationships heavily? Wouldn't he cry himself to death? After contemplating for some time, Zhongxian spoke. I will be going out for a moment. There's no need for you to follow me. Instead, you need to do something for me. At which, Zhongxian explained his plan in detail to him. This. Hearing his words, the butler widened his eyes in shock. This works too? Go. Zhongxian explained no further and urged him along. Yes. After the previous few incidents, he understood that the old master has his reasons for doing things. Thus, he didn't ask excessively and turned around to leave. A short while later, he returned again. Clearly, he had arranged everything that Zhongxian delegated him. If anyone comes knocking, have them wait at the door. After instructing so, Zhongxian walked out of the mansion. At the gates, he didn't even spare a glance at the kneeling Du Muxuan before walking away. Father. Seeing that Xianxia had no intentions of bothering himself with them, Du Yuan panicked and called his father. Since the other party had already left, what use was it for him to be kneeling here? I'm not doing this just to show Xianxia. This is also to display my determination on this matter and my reflection on my mistakes. If I were to leave now, I would probably be left stuck with my problem for life. Knowing what his son was thinking of, Du Muxuan explained. I got it. Du Yuan lowered his head in depression. For an elder of the Du clan, an ex-contender for the clan head position to be kneeling in the middle of a street. What is this? Chapter 143, Fetching Money. Did you hear? When Lord Ling sought the old master to treat his wife, he took out 1 million gold coins in one go. He sure is generous. At this moment, suppressed mutterings could be heard in the courtyard. It appeared to be the guards of the mansion. After seeing the old master leave the mansion, they started to gossip among themselves. 1 million? Is that for real? The other guard was clearly skeptical. Of course it's real, I saw it myself. It is definitely real. 1 million gold coins might be an astronomical sum to us, but it means nothing to a master teacher like the old master. I heard Brother Sun say that the old master only accepted it to ease the other party's mind. He didn't want him to feel like he owed him a favor. The first guard said. Now that you mention it, I recall that Lord Ling had also kneeled here for a night. Initially, the old master was unwilling to bother with him, but after he stuffed a sum to Brother Sun, out of benevolence, helped to speak up for him, and only then did he manage to enter. The second guard replied. The words of the two were hushed, but they were separated by only a small gate from the street. Du Yuan's cultivation realm was low, so he could be unable to hear their conversation clearly, but those words echoed in Du Miaoshuan's ears distinctly. Yuan, get up. Return to the clan now and bring all my savings here. Du Miaoshuan's eyes lit up. He was streetwise and full of experience, but that was limited to sparring, battles, and logical debates. In terms of bribery and gifting, he could not compare to a businessman. Previously, he hadn't thought of offering the other party money, but hearing those words, he was immediately enlightened. That's right. Even though master teachers don't accept money because of their identity, butlers are willing to accept it. The mansion, the servants, food, and drink, which of it didn't require money? Even a physician had to be paid after consulting him. It would be weird if the other party was welcoming since he had come empty-handed. All right. Du Yuan did not understand what was going on, but hearing father's words, he stood up immediately. I've heard that Brother Sun was reprimanded by the old master because of the matter. It seems that Lord Ling had offended the old master by doubting his identity previously. A master teacher's prestige must not be sullied. To plead with him using just 1,000,000 gold coins, how would he be able to uphold his reputation in the future? The old master said that that was a one-time-off matter, and it mustn't happen again. Truthfully speaking, 1,000,000 gold coins is truly like the heavens to us. Yet, to the old master, it wasn't even worth a plea. The first guard spoke. Indeed. When I passed by the front courtyard, I heard some people talking about it. I thought that they were lying. The second one continued. Outside. Wait a moment. Before Du Yuan could leave, his father's voice echoed in his ear once more. Dig out those precious pills that I bought recently and sell them all. Also, bring over those savage beast skins that I had accumulated over the years together with the money. Father. Du Yuan was taken aback. What was going on with father? Bringing the money, selling his possessions. Of course it's real. I have asked Brother Sun on the matter personally. He said that when Lord Ling passed the 1,000,000 gold coins over, the old master didn't even take a glance at it. The reason why he treated her was because Lord Ling's wife was on the verge of death, and saving someone brings one good karma. If the one who came over to plead with him was healthy, lively, and able to execute battle techniques, he definitely would ignore him. The voice of the first guard sounded. Ah. Du Miaoshuan began to shake. Clenching his jaws, he continued to command Du Yuan, sell that sword of mine as well. Also, wasn't the third elder interested in taking over my businesses? Talk to him. As long as he is willing to pay, all of those businesses shall be his. Father. Those were already father's greatest chips within the clan. If he were to sell them all, what will happen in the future? Du Yuan was stupefied. Hurry up. Du Miaoshuan urged him. Observing the stern expression on his father's face, Du Yuan dared not to retort. He turned around to leave at once. The fact that he was able to execute a battle technique showed that his body is all right. He definitely has a screw loose to doubt a master teacher. The second guard chastised. Even though the old master didn't care not for wealth, that person didn't even bring a single gold coin with him. Without offering anything, he wanted the old master to exert effort to offer him pointers. Wasn't he daydreaming? Du Miaoshuan gritted his teeth. Also, bring you and your mother's savings over as well. Du Yuan staggered in his footsteps, nearly bursting into tears. From the looks of it, his father's is already completely deranged. The conversation between the two guards was exactly what Zhong Xian delegated Sun Qiong. Without reminding the other party, how long would it take for them to send the money over? In any case, those were words of the guards and it had nothing to do with him at all. They did not dare to accuse a master teacher of being a moneygrubber either. As expected of the old master, even after doing someone in, he wants him to pay up. Back when Sun Qiong received the task from the old master, he also was speechless. From the very start, the other party would have given substantial rewards to the old master to thank him for offering him his guidance. However, it was uncertain how much the sum would be. After hearing the conversation between the two guards, who would dare to be stingy? To be able to think of a way to earn more money without sullying his prestige, to scam others without dirtying his hands. Too scheming. Initially, just like other people, he thought that the old master did not care for money. From the looks of it, a master teacher is still human and had their own expenses to upkeep. Leaving the residence and darting into a remote alley, Xianxia removed his disguise completely. It was exhausting to have kept the disguise on for the entire day. The guild should be done preparing the meridian rejuvenation pill and the body nourishment medicinal solution. I should first get them for Wang Ying and Liu Yang. His purpose for disguising himself as a master teacher to earn money was for this. For the time being, he is unable to obtain the unravel yin pill and the colossal rhinoceros blood, but these other two items were easy to obtain. Stepping into the apothecary guild, the two items were indeed ready. As for the remaining two, guild leader Ouyang had already sent an application and the headquarters would send it over from another branch. Apothecary guilds can be found in all large kingdoms. There were pills and treasures that Xianxia kingdom didn't possess, but that didn't mean that the other kingdoms didn't have them. As long as they send a request to the headquarters, the goods would be transported from the closest kingdom with stocks. This way, the delivery process was sped up. Otherwise, given how far the headquarters is from here, 10 days are too short for them to bring it here. Paying 1 million as a deposit, he obtained the two items successfully. Right, guild leader Ouyang, do you have breath-forging pills? Can you get me some? After housing the two objects in his storage ring, Xianxia asked. Breath-forging pill is something extremely useful for Fighter 1 Danjushi realm initiates. If Wang Ying and the others were to consume it, their training speed should be boosted significantly. I forged quite a bit of them previously and I still have a few remaining. I can give them to you right away. Guild leader Ouyang smiled and passed 2 jade bottles over. Upon receiving the jade bottle, he looked inside and saw that there were dozens of pills in each bottle. Xianxia understood that the other party was expressing his goodwill and it wasn't pleasant to reject him. As such, he nodded his head and accepted it. Even though the quality of the breath-forging pill wasn't exceptionally high, it was nevertheless a grade 1 pill. Every single pill costs tens of thousands, yet guild leader Ouyang shared dozens of them in a single go generously. Chapter 144. Spear expert. If it were any other 1-star apothecaries, even if they were friends, it was impossible for him to be so generous. However, Xianxia was simply too incredible. He was able to rival all the other apothecaries with his words, and regardless of whether it was pill forging, herbs. He was perfect in nearly every single aspect, as though there was no way whatsoever to defeat him in the pill debate, leaving everyone speechless in his wake. Relying on just this ability, he would surely be able to rise to incredible heights if granted sufficient time. This gesture of goodwill was, in a way, an investment for the future. After keeping the breath-forging pills, Xianxia suddenly recalled something and inquired, Guild leader Ouyang, do you know anywhere that sells secret manuals on spearmanship? Wang Ying had the body-nourishing medicinal solution, whereas Liu Yang had the meridian rejuvenation pill. The unravel yin pill and the colossus rhinoceros blood had not arrived, but when Zhao Yue and Yuan Dao consume it and awaken their constitution, their cultivation realm would definitely soar significantly. Of his 5 students, he only lacked a solution for Xingyang. Xingyang specialized in the way of the spear, and Lu Zun had looked for someone who was even more proficient than him to be his opponent. If he doesn't search for some powerful moves to impart to him, he could possibly become the weakest link. He had looked through the books in the teacher's compendium pavilion and there were some books on battle techniques, but very few relating to spears. That was also the reason why Wang Chao Laosha was so popular. Countless spear practitioners come applying to the academy in admiration of his name. Since Wang Chao was able to give Mo Xiao to Lu Zun, the two must share an exceptional relationship. In that case, it wasn't a viable option for him to visit him to ask him about the way of the spear. At the same time, he did not know anything about the spear. Thus, he could only ask around to see if there were any secret manuals on spearmanship sold in the capital. Secret manuals on spearmanship? You wish to learn the way of the spear? Guild leader looked at Xianxia in astonishment. Apothecaries are highly esteemed in society. Instead of learning pill forging, why are you learning the way of the spear instead? UN. Xianxia nodded his head. Spearmanship is relatively uncommon compared to swordsmanship, and there are significantly fewer people who learn it. There are even fewer who manage to become masters of the art. I just happen to be acquainted with one. His family heritage is of the spear, and his skills are incredibly powerful and profound. He is famous for his spearmanship, even when considering the entire capital. Ouyang stroked his beard and chuckled. Oh, can you bring me to learn from him? Zhongxian's eyes lit up. This person is often holed up inside his house. He rarely meets with outsiders and doesn't easily impart his spearmanship to others. However, I am a good friend of his, so perhaps he might sell me this favor. Ouyang said. Then I'll be troubling guild leader Ouyang for this. Knowing that the other party was trying to strike up connections, Zhongxian nodded his head and secretly decided to guide him in his pill forging whenever he gets the chance to. Let's go, I'll bring you to meet with this old friend of mine. Seeing that the other person understood his intent, Ouyang nodded his head in satisfaction. After leaving the apothecary guild, the two of them walked for nearly an hour before arriving at a residence. As Ouyang was good buddies with the master of the residence, the guards did not obstruct his path and they were able to enter the residence smoothly. Guild leader Ouyang, please wait a moment. My old master is still training, he will be out in a moment. The butler brought them to a small gazebo and said, UN, it'll do for him to look for me after he finishes his training. Guild leader Ouyang knew of the other party's habits and gestured with his hand to show that he wasn't bothered by it. Then, he beckoned to Zhongxian, Apothecary Zhong, come and sit. All right. Zhongxian sat down and surveyed the surroundings. The courtyard was large and the renovations were simple but elegant, creating a tranquil atmosphere. There were no servants or attendants in sight in the entire courtyard. It seemed like the owner of the residence wasn't an extravagant person. My friend is called Wang Chong. We were acquainted over 20 years ago and he had immersed himself in the way of the spear for his entire life. In terms of spearmanship, he is definitely one of the top figures in the entire Xianxia kingdom. Emperor Shenzui had even once complimented his spearmanship as peerless. Sipping on his tea, Ouyang introduced the owner of the residence. Incredible. Zhongxian had always held respect toward those who were able to reach the pinnacle of their occupation. Regardless of the occupation, to be able to emerge on top of thousands and thousands of people showed their determination and talent. Old Ouyang, are you talking bad about me behind my back again? Halfway through their conversation, a bright voice sounded. Then, an elderly walked over with widened strides. Even though he looked 50 or so, his body nevertheless appeared to be brimming with strength, as though he had a boundless supply of energy. He was dressed in a training robe and grabbed a spear in one hand. Just like the butler said, he was probably in the midst of his training and came over without even changing his clothes. Talking bad behind your back? I'm not that bored so as to do so. Ouyang stood up smiling. Judging from their tones, Zhongxian could tell that they were close friends. That's more like it. How do you have the time to look for me today? Wang Chong stepped into the gazebo and caught sight of Zhongxian. Perplexed, he asked, is this your junior? Cough cough. Ouyang nearly spat his tea out. An awkward expression appeared on his face. The heck, he is my junior. I want to fawn over him so that he can guide me with my pill forging. You saying that he is my junior nearly sent all of my efforts down the drain. Secretly sneaking Zhongxian a glance and confirming that he wasn't angry, he heaved a sigh of relief. Afraid that his old friend would say anything worse, he hurriedly introduced, let me introduce you to him. This is the newest one-star apothecary of our guild, Zhongxian. One-star apothecary. Wang Chong was surprised for a moment before feeling shocked. As an old friend of Ouyang, he knew very well how difficult the apothecary examination was. Seeing how young the other party was, he initially thought that Zhongxian was Ouyang's junior. The thought that he was an official apothecary didn't even occur to him. It was something inconceivable to him. Even the butler by the side was astonished. Not just so, Apothecary Zhong got promoted through pill debate. Single-handedly, he left 10 apothecaries speechless. In the field of pill forging, there isn't a single person in the entire capital who is more knowledgeable than him. Ouyang Cheng continued. Pill debate. Wang Chong was flabbergasted. Even though he wasn't an apothecary, he had heard of such an examination method from guild leader Ouyang's himself. For a fellow who wasn't even 20 years of age to become an apothecary through pill debate, even though the fact was lying right before him, he found it difficult to accept. Guild leader Ouyang is being too generous. I just happen to possess a little bit of knowledge. In terms of pill forging, I am still a rookie, Xianxia hurriedly said. He was speaking of the truth. The reason why he was able to succeed in the pill debate was because of the library of Heaven's Path. If he were to really dabble in pill forging, it was likely that he would be unable to forge even the easiest pills. The three men chatted for a while longer after that. Xianxia knew that Ouyang Cheng was complimenting him before Wang Chong intentionally to leave a good impression of him on Wang Chong. This way, it would be more likely for the Wang Chong to impart him the way of the spear. Indeed, after the banter, Ouyang Cheng smiled. Actually, I have something I need to trouble you with. Oh. Wang Chong's looked at Ouyang Cheng. It's like that. Apothecary Zhong highly appreciates the way of the spear. If Brother Wang has the time, you two can exchange views. Ouyang Cheng said. Oh. So Apothecary Zhong is a spear expert as well? That's great. Hearing those words, Wang Chong's eyes lit up in excitement. He was a spear fanatic and loved pitting himself against other spear experts. For Xianxia to have become an official apothecary at such a young age, he probably possessed superior talent. How could he not be excited to spar with him? Cough cough, I have never learned spearmanship before. Upon seeing that the other party was determined to duel with him, an awkward look appeared on Xianxia's face. Chapter 145. Heaven's Path Spear Art. His previous self had expended all of his effort and attention into raising his cultivation realm, allowing him to reach the Xianxia realm at an exceptionally young age. As such, he had never come into contact with spearmanship. Naturally, the current him who was a true blue earthling had never come into contact with it either. Have never learned before. Wang Chong was taken aback. If he had never learned spearmanship, what views could they exchange? A strange expression also appeared on Ouyang Cheng's face. Hearing that Xianxia wanted to learn spearmanship, he thought that he possessed at least a certain level of foundation in the art. That was also the reason why he termed it exchanging views instead of learning from him. In that way, Xianxia would be able to retain some dignity. Just to think that he had never learned spearmanship. Awkward. If only he knew that he hadn't learned spearmanship previously, he would have just directed him to any random spearmanship teacher. There wouldn't be a need to trouble his old friend. The situation is like this. I have a student who wants to study spearmanship, so I would like to learn a few moves now and teach him. Seeing that everyone's gaze was on him, Xianxia could only reveal his motive. Learn a few moves now? Teach someone else. Wang Chong staggered backward and nearly fainted from astonishment. Are you joking? As the saying goes, a month with the stave, a year with the saber, and a lifetime with the spear. Countless people had embarked on spearmanship from young, only to be unable to become a true initiate for their entire life. You haven't even learned the slightest thing, yet you intend to teach your student. Aren't you being too gutsy? Or do you think that spearmanship is easy? In an instant, Wang Chong's face darkened. The favorable impression he had of Xianxia fell apart. He had been training in the way of the spear for his entire life and already regarded the spear as an essential part of his life. He hated it when others belittled his art. Yet, this fellow hadn't even learned a single about it but intended to go about muddling his students. That was truly an insult to the way of the spear. If not for his respect for the other party's identity as a one-star apothecary and for his old friend Ouyang's dignity, he would have thrown him out. Suppressing his displeasure, he stated, "Spearmanship is hard to practice and learn. It is an impossible task to achieve anything significant in a short period of time. If you were to teach others without fully grasping the art, it is likely that you misguide them." His voice was steeled.
Oh.
Noticing the displeasure on the other party's face, Xianxia knew that it was probably impossible for him to learn spearmanship directly from the other party. After a moment of hesitation, he asked, "How about this? Does Brother Wang have any books regarding spearmanship here? If so, can you allow me to browse through them?" Browse through books? Wang Chong frowned. Spearmanship is a type of battle technique, and every single movement requires the guidance and correction of an expert, as well as the refinement over a lengthy period of time. If one could learn that easily by reading books, one wouldn't have to train that hard. However, even though he was skeptical of Xianxia's purpose, upon witnessing him give up on his previous intentions, he heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Sure, I have a lot of such books here. It is also good for you to learn about how profound spearmanship is so that you won't be so reckless. I'll bring you over." As a spear master, nearly every single book on spearmanship that was in the kingdom was in his possession. As long as his family's secret spear technique wasn't leaked, it wasn't really a big deal for him to allow outsiders to browse through those fundamental books. "Thank you." Xianxia hurriedly nodded his head. Spear arts, just like all other battle techniques, needed long hours of refinement in order for the form and the essence of the skill to shine through. However, Xianxia was different. As long as he had sufficient books, he was able to create a powerful and concise spear art that was easy to learn. "This is my study. I have almost all spear-related books in Xianxia Kingdom in here, as well as some exclusive collections." As the trio reached the study, Wang Chong gestured majestically with a proud expression. He had paid quite a hefty sum to gather all of these books. These books had also helped to augment his spearmanship, bringing it to greater heights. Looking inward, Xianxia saw 7 to 8 entire bookshelves filled with all kinds of books elaborating on every single aspect of spearmanship. "Oh Yang, it has been long since you last came. Let's go grab a drink." Knowing that Xianxia would take some time to read through some books, Wang Chong did not intend to wait here for him. Instead, he beckoned Ouyang Cheng toward another room. "All right," Ouyang Cheng said, and the two of them walked out. "I should begin." Watching them leave, Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief, walked up to a bookshelf and started flipping through the books. "Hua la la la." The sound of books flipping started to echo in the room, and all sort of books on spearmanship formed in his mind. Some of these books were on the very fundamentals, some of them detailed common moves, and some of them were just basic introductions. All in all, there were truly all kinds of books on spearmanship that one could possibly imagine in here. As expected of a spear master, his collection was truly abundant. Flipping through the books continuously, he soon imprinted into his mind all the 8 bookshelves of books in the study, which added up to a total of a few thousand books, within an hour. Standing quietly on the spot, Xianxia started to digest the newly compiled books in his mind. The correct training method. His mind jolted, and all of the books on spearmanship melded together to form a single book before him. He started flipping through it. Weapons are an extension of the arm. Only by training it to become a part of your arm can one be considered to be a true initiate. Spearmanship is the same as well. The spear art created by the Library of Heaven's Path through compiling so many books was incredibly profound and gave one the feeling of enlightenment. While looking through it, Xianxia used his finger in place of a spear to practice its moves. Hoo hoo hoo. From time to time, with the augmentation of Xianxia, his finger would pierce through the air menacingly. It was as though his body had become the spear itself, and at any moment now, he would pierce through the heavens. The spear was termed as the king of weapons. To become a true expert, one had to have the disposition of one capable of piercing through the heavens. Without numerous storms and the accumulation of experiences over time, it was impossible to forge such a disposition. If someone were to notice the current Xianxia, they would definitely yell in exclamation. That was because the current Xianxia already possessed the disposition. Even though it couldn't be determined whether his spearmanship had reached a high level of mastery, just the aura he was exuding was sufficient to crush the confidence of countless cultivators, destroying their will to fight. Fully immersed in the book, Xianxia was completely oblivious to these changes. Instead, he continued emulating the movements with his hands. TZZZZZ. Burst after burst of Xianxia shot out along the trajectory of his fingers and impacted the floor, creating countless holes on it. It was fortunate that he had kept his strength in check. Otherwise, Wang Chong's study would probably be wrecked just like Master Lu Chen's. After an unknown period of time, Zhong Xian finally stopped and exhaled turbid air. I'm already done cultivating it. His eyes lit up. In just a moment's time, he had already practiced the entire sequence of the spear art compiled in the library once. I'll call it Heaven's Path Spear Art. Wang. The book jolted and a name appeared on it. Heaven's Path Spear Art. It's a pity that there are too few books and too many mistakes in them. I only managed to create a single move. Zhong Xian lamented. The books were all on the basics of spearmanship. The Library of Heaven's Path compiled all of the correct theories and created a spear art from it. I wonder to what extent will this move augment my strength, and how much strength I would be able to execute through it. Even though it was just a single move, he knew that it was impossible for it to be anything simple, especially after experiencing the Heaven's Path Divine Art and the Heaven's Path Golden Body. His fighting prowess would definitely be boosted significantly if he were to execute it. I'll impart this to Xianxia when I return. The reason why he was here specially to learn spear art was so that he could impart it to Xianxia. Even though it was just a single move, at the very least, the journey he made here wasn't in vain. It could be imagined that if Xianxia were to fully grasp the skill, his spearmanship would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. By then, defeating that Mo Xiao wouldn't pose any problem. All that came from the Heaven's Path had to be exceptional. There was no doubt about this. Time to go. After reading all the books and obtaining what he wanted, Zhong Xian did not dawdle in the study excessively and walked out with big strides. Chapter 146. Spear Intent. Under the gazebo, Wang Chong and Ouyang Chong were seated across one another, drinking. You say that this apothecary Zhong passed the pill debate examination. Even until now, Wang Chong found it hard to believe. Pill debate is virtually a special privilege for master teachers, something that is meant for only the very best. Yet, a young man who wasn't even 20 managed to pass this examination. Even though he was hearing it firsthand from a reliable source, he nevertheless dares not to believe it to be possible. Indeed, Apothecary Zhong's knowledge on herbs and pills is superior even to that of mine. He is bound to reach great heights. Ouyang Cheng couldn't help but be impressed whenever he recalled Zhong Xian's deeds. Even though he is incredible in pills and herbs, his understanding of the spear is too shallow. Spearmanship isn't a game. One can't learn just by looking. If it were that easy, I wouldn't have had to immerse myself in it for my whole life thus far. Wang Chong's face shone with pride and overwhelming confidence reflected in his eyes. Indeed, the spear is the most complicated among all weapons. How could it be easy to achieve mastery? Of the numerous weapons, the spear was the hardest weapon to master. Countless cultivators had taken on the challenge only to end up locked out of the gates of success. Sighing, Ouyang Cheng suddenly remembered something and glanced at Wang Chong. There aren't any exclusive spear art secret manuals in your study, are there? He brought Zhong Xian here. If his old friend were to accidentally reveal some family heirloom secret manuals to him, he truly would have to feel apologetic. Of course not. The spear arts that I created, as well as my family's secret manuals, are all kept in my mind. They are only passed down by word. Other people are unable to learn it even if they wanted to. Wang Chong chuckled. Those that are in the study are all regarding the basics and fundamentals of spearmanship. It is useful for those who have just come into contact with the spear. It's not a big deal to allow Apothecary Zhong to browse through them. Besides, letting him read through them is a good idea. He should realize how difficult spearmanship is and drop his immature thoughts. To be thinking about teaching spearmanship when you know nothing at all, what a joke. If spearmanship were that easy, he wouldn't have possessed the fame that he has now, such that even Emperor Shenzui complimented him personally. The Spear Master wasn't a title that came out of nowhere. For this matter, he had absolute confidence and pride. Indeed. Ouyang Cheng nodded his head. There isn't a single weapon or battle technique that can be mastered easily. They require continuous training to refine every single move to the very perfection. If it could be grasped that easily, experts would be worth nothing at all. Apothecary Zhong is still young and it is natural for him to be ambitious. After he's done browsing through those books, I will reveal a spear art to him so that he would realize the difficulty and give up on those ludicrous thoughts. Even though Wang Chong was unsatisfied with Zhong Xian's actions, he dared not to underestimate him, especially after knowing his talent in pill forging. All right, I guess he should probably give up after that and focus on pill forging. I'm still looking forward to our first 2-star apothecary in our apothecary guild. Ouyang Cheng chuckled. Just as he was about to continue speaking, he saw Wang Chong's body stiffen abruptly before trembling uncontrollably. Dang Lang! He was oblivious to the fact that the wine cup he held in his hand had dropped to the floor and shattered into pieces. Wang Chong! Looking at the spearmaster, whose strength was top-notch in the entire Xianxia city, acting so strangely all of the sudden, Ouyang Cheng was horrified. He had never heard that his old friend was sick. Why did he start convulsing all of the sudden? It's spear intent, spear intent. Just when he was considering what pill he should pop into his friend's mouth to save him, the latter suddenly recovered. His eyes glowed as though a priceless treasure was right before him. Spear intent? What is that? Seeing that he was fine, Ouyang Cheng heaved a sigh of relief and looked at him curiously. What could it be, for it to be able to make his friend, who was as steady as a mountain, behave in such a manner? Those who reach a certain level of mastery in the sword can form the sword intent. Similarly, those who are able to exude spear intent are the true spear masters. These few years, the reason why I had confined myself to the residence was so that I can temper my mind to enter such a state. However, it is a pity that I had been unable to achieve a breakthrough. When did such an expert appear in the residence? Or did someone manage to achieve a breakthrough before I did? Let's go over to take a look. He stood up abruptly and proceeded toward the origin of the spear intent. After developing spear intent, whatever one did with the spear would be a spear art. He had always strived for this goal, but he had managed to find the way. He never imagined that someone who could form spear intent would suddenly appear in his residence. Who could it be? The two of them rushed toward the source of spear intent. On the way, they happened to see Zhong Xian strolling leisurely out of the study. Where is he? Before Zhong Xian could say anything, Wang Chong asked hurriedly. He? Who do you mean? Zhong Xian had no idea what the other party was talking about. He had been immersed in reading and practicing the Heaven's Path spear art, so he hadn't paid much attention to the situation outside. What happened? Did an enemy invade? I felt an astonishing wave of spear intent here. Why is there no one? Seeing that Zhong Xian was clueless, Wang Chong looked around hastily. However, the surrounding was completely empty and there weren't any other people in sight. Could it be that you've been thinking of it so much that you began to imagine things? Ouyang Cheng asked. His old friend had been dreaming about spear intent day and night. Could it be that his longing had finally turned into delusions? Otherwise, why was he unable to sense anything himself? At my level, I am just a step away from forming spear intent. Just a moment ago, I had clearly felt a spear intent surging into the skies. I am positive of that. Wang Chong was very confident. He had been exploring the secrets of the spear every day fanatically, and it would be truly embarrassing if he had mistaken spear intent as something else. Wait. What is that spear intent you both are talking about? Looking at the heated discussion between the two, Zhong Xian could not hold back his curiosity. All the books that he had read were on the bare fundamentals. Spear intent is an extremely advanced topic and it wasn't recorded in any of the books. As such, Zhong Xian was ignorant. Spear intent is a special state of mind which a practitioner can reach only if his understanding of the spear reaches the extreme. Wang Chong tried explaining before shaking his head. You have never learned spearmanship. You won't understand it even if I explain it to you. Even though the other party did not go into details, Zhong Xian got a brief grasp on the situation. So, the reason why you are looking around here is because someone had released spear intent here just a moment ago. I'm not very sure as well. I felt it vaguely just now and it should be in the vicinity. Wang Chong nodded his head. The appearance of the spear intent was only for the briefest moment, as though a flash of lightning. Even Wang Chong could only sense it vaguely, and as such, he was unable to ascertain the exact location. Otherwise, he would have rushed forward directly rather than to stay distressed over here. Right. You were here just now. You should be clear about where the person is. Suddenly recalling something, Wang Chong turned around to look at him with glowing eyes. He was a distance away, so he was unable to sense the exact location. However, Apothecary Zhong had been here all along. With his help, he would surely be able to find the master. At the very least, after they confirm the location, they would know whether the person is a member of the clan or an outsider. As a clan specializing in spear, all members of the clan immerse themselves in the way of the spear. Even the guards were skilled in spearmanship. Even though Wang Chong could summon all of the guards here to question them one by one, if the person in question simply kept mum or was unaware of it himself, it would be much simpler to pinpoint the exact location. But I don't know what spear intent is. Zhong Xian hesitated. That's simple. Even though I have yet to fully comprehend spear intent, I am able to imitate with it a 70 to 80 likeness. It should feel something like this. Wang Chong exerted and a sharp piercing aura gushed straight toward Zhong Xian. It felt as though it was capable of piercing through anything. So this is spear intent. A bizarre expression appeared on Zhong Xian's face. Indeed, it should feel something like this. Do you know where it came from? Dispelling the aura, sweat droplets streamed down Wang Chong's forehead. Still gasping for air, he inquired. Even though he only imitated the aura for a brief moment, it took a toll on his body and weakened him. This. Zhong Xian felt slightly embarrassed. Is the spear intent you spoke of, this? The next instant, Zhong Xian's entire body seemed to have turned into a spear and exuded a frighteningly piercing aura, as though he would pierce through the heavens at any moment. Contrasting the two, Wang Chong's spear intent was like a blade of grass before a towering ancient tree. Incomparable. Chapter 147. Can I learn from you? Spear. Spear intent. Wang Chong's body swayed and he nearly fainted. Are you for real? How can you display spear intent? Furthermore, such a pure spear intent. He was astonished. Noticing Zhong Xian's embarrassed look, he nearly threw up blood. Embarrassed? Embarrassed your head. Brother, can you not fool others like that? Didn't you say that you never learned the way of the spear? Didn't you say that you didn't know what spear arts were? I have started learning the way of the spear since 8, and I had spent 40 years since then dedicating my life to it. Even so, I am still a long way from achieving spear intent. Can you explain to me roughly, what is with that overwhelming spear intent of yours? Didn't you say that you do not know what spear intent is? Then what in the world is this? Tears streamed down Wang Tsong's face. You shouldn't play with someone like that. It was laughable that he had reprimanded the other party so brazenly earlier on, saying that he wouldn't understand it even if he explained it. Where did this self-confidence come from? Or rather, the one who didn't understand was he himself. He hated the fact that there wasn't a hole here for him to dive into. This is spear intent. Ouyang Cheng was stunned. Right after displaying a moment of spear intent, his old friend was already sweating profusely and panting for air, as though he had been constipated for a few days straight. Yet, this fellow was able to execute it easily as and when he liked, as though it were merely eating and drinking. Are you the spearmaster, or Wang Chong is? You. Didn't you say that you have never learned about spears? Overwhelmed with shock, Ouyang Cheng asked. Wang Chong also hurriedly shifted his attention to hear how the other party would explain it. It is true that I haven't learned it before. Zhong Xian replied truthfully. If you have never learned it before, how can you have such a powerful spear intent? Wang Chong was about to go mad. If you were able to display such powerful spear intent without any prior experience, given my achievement despite how I have spent my life immersing myself in the art, I must have been spending my time on learning nonsense. Oh, I was just reading the books in the study and an epiphany struck me. I realized that executing spear art in this form felt the most comfortable, so I got into the form. I didn't know that this is spear intent. Zhong Xian said after a short moment of contemplation. Zhong Xian wasn't trying to feign ignorance. Rather, the books in the study were truly only about the very basics of spearmanship, so there wasn't a single one that detailed spear intent. He only happened to grow such a disposition due to the Heaven's Path spear art formed through these books. As for how spear intent could be used and how useful it was to a spear wielder, he had no idea at all. Wang Chong's tears continued streaming down his face. You described it as though it were as easy as eating and drinking. Do you know how much effort I have put into the matter, only to fail time and time again? For the past decade, I had been building my mental fortitude, entering desolate lands, overcoming the frost and withstanding the heat. Even so, I have yet to succeed. Yet, you simply came to the study, read some books and unintentionally, managed to reach such a level. My heart, my liver, my youth. If there were a huge pit before him, he would have definitely jumped in to bury himself alive. Can you not destroy my confidence like that? If you said that you had put in a lot of effort, trained daily and simply happened to achieve a breakthrough, I would feel a little better. But you have only spent 2 hours reading through books, and yet you have already achieved a breakthrough. Furthermore, what you were reading weren't profound secret manuals. They were just elementary books on spearmanship. If word were to spread out, all spear masters in the capital would definitely die from shame. Wang Chong, humans aren't born with equal talents. Perhaps, Apothecary Zhong, may truly be gifted in the way of the spear. Seeing his despondent old friend who had been struck a heavy blow, Ouyang Cheng tried to console him. All right, I can only take it as that. As expected of an expert spear practitioner, he had already forged his will to become as resilient as steel. Even though he was dispirited, he soon readjusted his mental state. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a young man's perplexed voice echo in the air. You say that I have comprehended spear intent, but what does spear intent do? Wang Chong's staggered once more. Enduring his crumbling heart, he explained, spear intent refers to one's understanding of the spear. Reaching spear intent means that the spear has already become an extension of the practitioner's arms. Under such a state, any movement he makes can be considered as a spear art. This is something that can only be achieved when one reaches the pinnacle of spearmanship. Any movement made can be considered as spear art. Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. Great! If my student can comprehend spear intent, he would be able to achieve victory in the freshman tournament. Since spear intent is that formidable, Zhong Xian decided to give Xianxia a good lesson when he returned. As long as he is able to achieve such a state, even if he didn't possess profound spear arts in his arsenal, it is unlikely for him to lose to his opponent. You want to help your student comprehend it as well. Wang Chong trembled. Spear intent is a person's understanding toward the spear. Do you think that everyone is as overpowered as you so as to be able to achieve a breakthrough just by looking at some books? He wanted to convince the other party to drop the idea, but he didn't know where he should start from. Right, I have learned a technique when I was looking through the books earlier back, but I have no idea how powerful it would be. Since Brother Wang is a spear master, can you offer me some pointers? Zhong Xian had no concept of spear intent, so he wasn't as shocked as the other party. Recalling the move that the Heaven's Path library created, he couldn't help but speak up. The person before him was a renowned spear master in the entire kingdom. He would definitely be able to point out the strengths and weaknesses of the move. You even comprehended a technique. Fine, I'm also interested to see what kind of move a genius like you is able to comprehend. Wang Chong nodded his head and sent a subordinate to fetch a spear over. Soon, he returned carrying 2 spears. The best way to test the strength of a move is through sparring. Apothecary Zhong, show me the move you have just comprehended. It was as though Wang Chong had transformed the moment a spear was grasped in his hands. His aura was ferocious, as though a savage ancient beast had awakened from his sleep. In his view, even though the other party had comprehended spear intent, his absolute strength and ability to wield the spear should still be inferior to him. Even if the other party has any special moves, he should be able to handle it with ease. All right. It just happened that Zhong Xian wanted to try out his move. Thus, he casually grabbed the other spear. He had never once grabbed a spear in his life. However, after comprehending spear intent, the spear felt like a perfect fit in his hands. Let's begin. The moment Zhong Xian felt so, his aura evolved immediately, as though the ordinary young man from before had become a domineering conqueror. Who? Charging forward, his spear shot out explosively from his palms. This technique was something he created after compiling the essence of thousands of manuals. All of the complexities had been simplified into this one single concise move. The Xianxia in his entire body churned and the spear flew out as though a massive rising from the ocean, soaring into the skies. What? Initially, he didn't pay much heed to Wang Chong, but upon witnessing the spear piercing straight at him, goosebumps were raised on his body immediately and he was almost scared witless. The move may look simple, inelegant, and even ugly, but it focused all of the cultivator's strength and spirit into a single point. This was supreme spear art. Boom! Without much time to think, Wang Chong's exerted all his strength in one stroke and met Zhong Xian's blow with one of his own. Unleashing his full strength, his cultivation realm was also revealed. Fighter 7 Dan, Tongxian realm. Ding! The two spears met in the air and a massive shockwave was generated, sending intense gusts to the surroundings. Deng 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 deng. Zhong Xian retreated 7 to 8 steps before stopping. On the other hand, Wang Chong was still rooted to his spot. It was clear who the victor was in the simple face-off. Zhong Xian didn't use his full strength. He had limited it to 40 ding and naturally wouldn't be able to withstand a full strength attack by a Tongxian realm advanced stage expert. However, due to the incredible resilience of his body and his pure Xianxia, even though he was forced back, he wasn't injured at all. As expected of a spear master, incredible. Seeing that the other party had managed to easily deal with a move derived by the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhong Xian was impressed. On the other hand, Wang Chong nearly fainted from fear. The other party's seemingly simple spear art had forced him to execute his trump card. Furthermore, even though he didn't retreat a single step and it looked as though he had the upper hand, there was a dull pain in his chest and his blood flow had become erratic. He had been wounded considerably in the face-off. If not for him suppressing forcefully, he would have spurted a mouthful of blood. No matter what, he was a Tongxian realm advanced stage expert. For him to be unable to match up to a Pishua realm opponent, it was a difference of an entire cultivation realm between them. Normally, it would be impossible for one to defeat an opponent who had a higher cultivation realm. It was hard to tell what he would think if he were to know that the young man before him had only used half of his strength in this face-off. This move is truly incredible. After taking a long time to adjust his breathing, Wang Chong couldn't help but compliment. The move was simply too amazing. He had always thought that he was a genius, and he had also created quite a few spear techniques. However, compared to this move, they were all trash. The difference between the two was like comparing dirt to gem. That's great. I want to impart this move to my student. Can Brother Wang offer me some pointers so that I can improve it? Zhong Xian asked. Pointers? Wang Chong's face flushed. Apothecary Zhong, are you here to slap my face? Putting aside the fact that you have achieved spear intent and that every single move of yours is a spear art, this move, I can't even comprehend the move. How can I offer you pointers? Even though he was a spear master, he wasn't able to tell how his opponent executed the move and how the attack came at him. He felt so embarrassed that he could commit suicide. This move has no problems. You can impart it to your student like this. After saying those words, Wang Chong's face felt a burning sensation on his face. Now ago, he had thought that the young man didn't understand spearmanship and that he was insulting the way of the spear. But now, he felt that he was the one insulting the way of the spear. The other party had only read 2 hours of books, and not only did he comprehend spear intent, he had even created such an incredible technique. On the other hand, he had practiced spearmanship for more than 40 years, but had only reached such a nonsensical level. In an instant, he felt blood welling up in his chest, ready to spurt out at any moment. After the embarrassment, a daring thought suddenly emerged in his mind. The essence of the other party's technique was to concentrate one's entire strength to one single point. In this aspect, it resembled spear intent greatly. If he were to learn the move, he might be able to break through the final barrier obstructing him and achieve spear intent. Apothecary Zhong, can you teach me this move? After a moment of hesitation, he asked red-faced. You wish to learn? Sure, I can teach you. After a moment of surprise, Xianxia agreed to his request with a smile. Hearing the conversation between the two, Ouyang staggered. Wasn't Xianxia the one who came here today to learn spearmanship from Wang Chong? How did their roles get swapped? Chapter 148. Student Dueling Platform without the Heaven's Path Divine Art to complement the Heaven's Path Spear Art. Even if the other party learned it, it would be significantly weaker than his. Furthermore, it was a move he had devised through the other party's books, so teaching the other party wasn't a big deal. Thus, Xianxia agreed to Wang Chong's request without much hesitation. Of course, it was impossible for him to impart him the full version. After all, the Heaven's Path Spear Art was too fearsome. It would be unparalleled even if he were to just impart a portion of it. Wang Chong had raised this request without harboring much hope. Upon hearing Xianxia agree to it, his entire body trembled in agitation and his eyes reddened. Experts usually only imparted the moves they created to their children and disciple, never allowing it to leak out. Putting others aside, he was one of them as well. Other than his son, he had never taught anyone else the moves that he had created. Yet, Apothecary Zhong was willing to impart such a profound move to him so easily. This magnanimity and personality. This move is extremely profound, I can't learn it for free. Hesitating for a moment, Wang Chong said. Even though the other party was willing to impart him the move, it wasn't appropriate for him to take something without giving anything back in return. It was just like how one had to send betrothal gifts when marrying others' daughter. How could there be free lunch in this world? Apothecary Zhong is lacking gold coins to purchase some pills. I think it would be best for you to pay him some money to serve as the tuition fee. Ouyang interjected. Xianxia had yet to pay him for the pills he had bought in his stead. He knew the other party was definitely looking for a way to earn money to repay him, and since his old friend wished to repay the favor, it was best for him to simply give Xianxia money. Furthermore, after imparting the battle technique to Wang Chong, Xianxia would be considered as half a teacher to Wang Tsong. If Xianxia turned out to be very demanding thereafter, he might be unable to repay this favor and this would put him in a very difficult position. Putting others aside, what if Xianxia wanted to learn the spear arts Wang Chong had created? Should he teach it to him? All right. Understanding the intentions behind his old friend's words, Wang Chong hurriedly nodded his head. He turned around to delegate some tasks to the butler. Not long later, the butler came in with a stack of bills and passed it over to Xianxia. This is the tuition fee. I hope that Apothecary Zhong can accept it. It would be inappropriate for me to learn your spear art for free. Xianxia's eyes widened. Am I dreaming? I came here to learn spear art, but why did I become the one teaching? Furthermore, I am even earning money. However, Xianxia found it hard to reject his money, looking at that stack of bills which was worth at least 2 million. Upon keeping the money, Xianxia began to display the technique slowly and explained the concept and workings behind it in detail. As expected of a spear master, although Wang Chong had not yet achieved spear intent, his knowledge of spears had already permeated deep into his bones. With a single demonstration, he had already almost fully grasped the concept. Even though his might was still far from Xianxia's original version, there were no problem with his form and his movements. Apothecary Zhong, thank you for imparting me the move. Only after learning this move did Wang Chong truly understand how powerful it was. He was astounded by its might. He could already foresee that if he were to continue practicing the skill, in less than a year, he would be able to achieve spear intent and grow even stronger. Regardless of whether he had paid the school fee or not, Xianxia had already become half a teacher to him. By half a teacher, it meant that one had learned a move or two from another person, or had been granted pointers from him. Since he had already grasped the move, there was no need for Xianxia to remain here. Along with Ouyang, he bided farewell and left. Guild leader Ouyang, help me keep an eye on those pills. I will claim them from you when the time comes. Leaving Spear Master Wang Chong's residence, Xianxia said, Rest easy. Ouyang nodded his head. Previously, he simply thought that as long as this young man studied diligently, he could become the first 2-star apothecary of Xianxian Kingdom. However, such thoughts had vanished altogether from his mind. From a complete beginner, just by reading 2 hours of books, he was able to easily create a move that even Wang Chong revered, furthermore achieving spear intent. Such a person would surely strike it big and his name would ring across the world. Return to the academy. The body nourishment medicinal solution and meridian rejuvenation pill were already in his possession, so he thought that he should pass them over to his students so that they could cultivate even faster. After bidding Ouyang Cheng farewell, he returned to his classroom swiftly. However, when he arrived, he only saw Wang Ying in the classroom, the rest were absent. Where are the others? Zhong Xian frowned. He had been finding all means to help them raise their strength swiftly, yet this bunch of fellows didn't even come for training. They. Not expecting Zhong Laoshi to appear at such a moment, Wang Ying was terrified. Cowering backward in fear, she stuttered. Zhong Laoshi had said when he left class yesterday that he would be busy, and he might be unable to make it for lessons for the time being. Why is he back so soon? Speak. Zhong Xian's complexion darkened. In order to awaken their unique constitution and heal their wounds, he went through the trouble of undertaking the apothecary examination and disguised himself as a master teacher. Yet, they were skipping out on lessons. He was truly infuriated. If he knew that this would happen, he would never have bothered expending such effort on them. Was he giving them dowry? If students didn't working hard themselves, no matter how much assistance the teacher provides them, it would still be difficult for them to achieve great heights in the future. After all, rotten mud would just slide down no matter how high you carry them up. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. At the point, Zhong Xian's face was completely cold. Teacher! Wang Ying shivered. She had a weak character, and upon seeing Zhong Laoshi's rage, she was scared speechless. Gr. At this point, the door opened. Before anyone could walk in, a voice echoed, Wang Ying, hurry up and come. They have started fighting. Halfway through his words, the owner of the voice saw the icy-faced Zhong Xian and the remaining words cluttered in his throats. Zhong Laoshi. The owner of the voice shuddered. Fatty Yuan Dao. Started fighting? Getting someone to help? Did I get you here to cultivate or to fight? Zhong Xian's voice was icy. I. Yuan Dao's face paled. You have barely learnt a thing or two and you are already out fighting others. Is it that you don't need me as your teacher anymore? Truthfully, Zhong Xian wasn't angry, his heart simple ached. Even though he hadn't gotten along with these students of his for long, he had already treated them as his closest kin and had worked hard for their sake. Yet, they went out to engage in a group fight, running back to call for backup when they found themselves in a bad position. He felt frustrated over how they simply had not matured. Zhong Laoshi, that's not it. Anxiety appeared on Yuan Dao's plump face. That's not it. Then tell me, what does fighting and you calling Wang Ying to help means? If I were to hear of any false words from your mouth today, I will expel you. Don't even dream of calling me teacher ever again. Zhong Xian flung his robe backward furiously. If these children were not worth grooming, he wouldn't want to waste his effort as well. The most that could happen was for him to lose and leave Qianxian Kingdom and Hongqian Academy. With the Library of Heaven's Path in his possession, where else could he not go in this vast world? The reason why he stayed was because his previous self's longing for this place and his sense of responsibility toward his students. It's... Yuan Dao shivered for a moment before gritting his teeth. It's like this. Today, the academy is allocating cultivation resources and they said that you are the worst teacher in the academy, so you don't have any rights to claim it. We felt furious with their words and went over to argue it out with them. As such, a conflict broke out. Allocating cultivation resources. Zhong Xian was stunned for a moment before he recalled. Every month, the academy would allocate cultivation resources to each teacher. The amount of resources a teacher received depended on the amount of students the teacher had, the results of his teacher qualification examination, as well as his overall evaluation. The teachers could use these resources themselves or to reward the better students in order to encourage them to work harder. Usually, these cultivation resources were allocated by the Student Bureau. Student Bureau was the department that was responsible for managing and conducting examinations for students, as well as to distribute cultivation resources to the students and teachers. Xianxia had scored within the top 10 of the freshmen and did not have to share a dormitory with the others. It was the department which allocated her dormitory to her. "Bring me over." Knowing that they were standing up for him, Xianxia felt a surge of warmth in his heart. His rage had also quelled significantly. Those lads. Yes. Yuan Dao did not dare to say anything else. He immediately led the way, with Wang Ying also tagging along. The three of them started to walk toward the student bureau. Student Bureau. The teacher guild had already endorsed Zhong Laoxia's innocence on the affair. "Zhu Laoxia, why do you still refuse to allocate the resources belonging to him?" Zheng Yang glared at the young man before him furiously. That was a previous student who had become a teacher in the school, Zhu Qian. "Innocence? Are the documents here? Did they any notify us?" Zhu Qian lifted his eyebrows and a hint of mockery appeared on his face. "Since there's nothing at all, Xianxia remains the worst teacher in the school who scored a 0 for his teacher qualification examination. It is a waste to grant him resources. Don't blame me for having not allocated resources to you, blame yourselves for acknowledging the wrong teacher. As the ancient saying goes, wealth, peers, teachings, and land. Of which, wealth came first, and from this, it was clear to see how important it was for one's cultivation. TL. This is a Buddhism term that states the 4 things one need to achieve enlightenment. Without sufficient wealth, one is unable to immerse himself in his cultivation. Without peers, it is difficult for one to reach great heights. Without teachings, it is likely for one to stray from the correct path. Without a suitable land, it is likely for one to be affected by his surroundings. This was precisely the reason why Wang Ying hesitated back then when Xianxia said that she might face a shortage of cultivation resources. Every month, Hongqian Academy would allocate some cultivation resources to its students and teachers. Most of them were low-level pills. Even though it wasn't of much use to the teachers, it was excellent tonic for students who had just started cultivating. This was the reason why many people were able to improve rapidly. Today was the day of the allocation, but they were not informed. Naturally, they took the initiative to inquire about the matter. Even if the documents from the teacher guild had yet to be passed down, I recall that all teachers of Hongqian Academy, regardless of how terrible their results are, as long as they had students, they would qualify to claim the breath-forging powder. What rights do you have to not even give that to us? Xianxia stepped forward. Breath-forging powder was the most common cultivation resources used by the lower-grade students. It allowed the students in Jushi realm to better sense the spiritual energy in the air. The breath-forging powder couldn't be considered as a pill, and even when Shui, who hadn't qualified as an apprentice apothecary, could make it, thus making it inexpensive. According to the school rules, any teacher with students was entitled to it. You may be able to find excuses to avoid allocating the expensive cultivation resource to us, but if you refuse to give this to us as well, it would be clear that you are trying to make things difficult for us. There's such a rule, but there's also a clause stating that if the students weren't worth grooming, the student bureau could choose not to allocate any to the students. You all refused to follow by the student bureau's arrangement and made a fuss here. Hence, it is logical that I would reject your request. Zhu Qian said arrogantly. You. Seeing that the other party was determined not to give it to them, Xianxia's breathing hastened and her face flushed. Why? Are you unsatisfied with my arrangements? The corners of Zhu Qian's lips crept up. If you are not satisfied, that is a student dueling platform over there. You can challenge my students, and if you are able to defeat all of them, not only will I give you the breath-forging powder, I can even give you the breath-forging bead. Remember, this is a breath-forging bead. Weren't you all causing a ruckus demanding for me to give Xianxia his resources? Even though this isn't a true pill, it isn't far from that. It is effective even for Pishua realm experts. An ordinary teacher could only claim 1 every month. If you dare to take on the challenge and succeed, I will give you all 3 of it. The student dueling platform was one of the means to settle a conflict between students and teachers. Of all methods, it was only second to the teacher dueling platform. The way it operated was simple. As long as the one challenging the teacher was able to defeat all of the students under him, that teacher would have to apologize to the student. Chapter 149, Xianxia's Decision, Breath-Forging Bead. 3 of it. Hearing those words, Xianxia and the others' breaths started to hasten. Breath-Forging Bead was something unique to the Hongqian Academy. It was something that couldn't be bought even at the Apothecary Guild. It increased the pace at which fighters absorb spiritual energy, allowing them to improve quickly. Xianxia had done so much for us without expecting any returns. As his students, it's time for us to repay the favor. Xianxia's gaze was resolute. Since young, he had been training diligently alone, trying to fumble his way through his cultivation. He thought that even in school, his teacher would only clarify his doubts and solve some problems. However, the warmth that Xianxia had given him was much more than that. He created a cultivation technique just for him and pointed out his flaws. Just so for their sake, he even took the risk to partake in a pill debate. As he thought about everything that had occurred, he couldn't help but feel moved. Motivation welled up in him. Xianxia may care not for these resources, but every teacher is allocated some of them. If he becomes the only teacher who doesn't get any, his prestige and reputation will be sullied. As his students, we have to fight for his sake, no matter what it takes. Xianxia gritted her teeth. Xianxia casually gave her the frigid sun mother grass, which was worth 100,000 gold coins. Even though the breath-forging bead wasn't bad as well, it was unlikely that he would care much for it. However, this is no longer a problem over the resource allocation, but dignity. Of so many teachers in the academy, he was the only one who wasn't given the resources. If word were to spread out, people would look down on him. Since he isn't at the academy, then, teacher, we will protect your dignity in your stead. We shall guard your prestige. Determination filled Xianxia, Xingyang, and Liu Yang's eyes. Not a hint of hesitation could be seen. Fine, we'll challenge the student dueling platform. Nodding their heads in agreement, Xingyang retrieved the spear at his back and started fitting it together. Then, with a flick of his wrist, the air moaned under the pressure of the spear. This is what you have chosen for yourself. Don't regret it. Zhu Qian sneered coldly. He raised his hand and beckoned. Everyone come out, someone is challenging you. It's time to teach them a lesson. As long as you defeat them, I will give every one of you some breath-forging powder. Hualala. Accompanied by a roar, a group of people came out. They were all freshmen and there were around 40 to 50 of them. I have a total of 47 students. No matter how many of you go at them, as long as you can defeat all 47, I will consider it your victory. The corners of Zhu Qian's lips crept upward. 47. Xianxia and the others' mouths twitched. They didn't think that a new teacher who just joined this year would be able to recruit so many students. Let's fight. We mustn't embarrass ourselves and Xianxia. There were rules for the student dueling platform. One could choose to fight their opponents one by one or to take on all of them at once. As long as they were able to defeat all of the students under the teacher, it would be their victory. Since they had already made up their minds, there was nothing for them to hesitate about. With a leap, Xingyang first stepped into the ring. Who? One of Zhu Qian's students leaped up as well. The duel began immediately. Zhu Qian. On their way over to the student bureau, Yuan Dao explained the situation to Xianxia. Hearing so, Xianxia frowned. He had never offended this teacher, be it his previous self or after he reincarnated over. Why is he picking on him? Even though the academy appeared to be calm on the outside, it was filled with internal strife. Many rivalries and schemes went on in the shadows. However, he didn't recall any conflict with that teacher from the student bureau. Teachers of the student bureau rarely did such things as it would incur the ire of the other teachers. Furthermore, Xianxia had just toppled the head of the education bureau. Even though the students were unaware of it, as a teacher, he should have heard the news. To pit himself against him despite knowing it, was he asking for a beating? I've heard some rumors that he was once Elder Xianxia's disciple. The reason why he was able to remain at the school as a teacher was because of the elder's arrangements. Yuan Dao said. So that's the case. If so, the situation made sense. He had caused Elder Xianxia to be stripped of his position as the head of the education bureau, and even now, he was at risk of being punished by the teacher guild. As his student, he had to stand up for his own teacher. However, my face isn't that easy to be slapped. Knowing the reason, Xianxia shook his head. It's not impossible to slap my face, but your hand has to be strong enough so as to not hurt yourself. Pang, pang, pang. After a few fists landed on his back consecutively, Xianxia felt a tinge of sweetness in his mouth, and he seemed to be unable to bend the hand which wielded the spear anymore. In the past few days, his cultivation had improved tremendously. Zhu Qianlao's students were not a match for him, but they were too numerous. That was already the fifth opponent, and he was on the verge of collapsing. If it were an ordinary dueling match, Xianxia wouldn't have been so tired. However, the other party seemed to have planned it out beforehand and was hopping around the battlefield intentionally, refusing to face him head-on, with the goal of draining his stamina. Persevere. You have to persevere on. Xianxia bit the bullet. With the last sliver of energy he had remaining, his spear shook and he defeated his fifth opponent. Ha ha, can't withstand it anymore. With a loud chuckle, the sixth student leaped onto the stage and kicked Xianxia's chest. The latter staggered 7 to 8 steps backward. If not for his dogged tenacity, he would have fallen off the ring. If you can't take it, stop putting on a show here. To dare to challenge Zhu Lao's prestige, scram. The sixth student sneered and sent his stave straight at him. Given the speed of the stave, if Xianxia were to be hit, he would definitely be injured severely. I have to block it. With a ferocious expression on his face, Xianxia tried to raise his spear for a block. However, he realized that he was one move too slow, he wouldn't be able to make it in time. Knowing that the stave would surely hit him, Xianxia closed his eyes and braced for the impact. He thought that he would fall off the student dueling platform immediately spurting fresh blood, but for a long time, nothing happened. He opened his eyes hurriedly and saw a figure before him. That person wasn't of a tall stature, but his back view looked extremely reliable. The stave that the sixth opponent brandished was grasped between the person's fingers. No matter how much strength the former exerted, he was unable to shake his weapon out of the latter's hand. Zhong Laosha. With a single glance, he recognized the person. That figure before him is his teacher, Zhong Laosha. Isn't he out? Why is he here? The one who stopped the stave was indeed Zhong. Arriving with Yuan Dao, upon witnessing the situation, he immediately dashed forward and jumped onto the ring. It was just 10 days before the battle with Lu Zun Laosha. If these students of his were to get injured at such a time, Zhong would have to surrender for the teacher evaluation duel. As Xianxia was overthrown by Zhong, Zhu harbored resentment for him. Knowing that he wasn't a match for Zhong, he intentionally provoked his students, Xianxia and the others, for this purpose. As long as Xianxia and the rest were injured, he calculated that they would not stand a chance in the teacher evaluation. Seeing that it was too late to stop the duel through any other means, Zhong leaped onto the stage himself. Zhong, what do you mean by this? Your students are competing in the student dueling platform. Why? Do you intend to make a move on my students despite being a teacher? Seeing him rush over, Zhu wasn't too surprised. A menacing gleam flashed through his eyes. Make a move on your students. You sure are thinking too much. With a flick of his finger, the other party's stave broke into many pieces. Patting his hands, he glanced over. Then what do your actions mean? Do you wish to take back your words? However, it seems like it is too late. Your students have already agreed to challenge the student dueling platform, and they have already injured 5 of my students. No matter what, the challenge must go on. This matter isn't up to you. Unless... At this point, Zhu lips curled up into a cold smile. Unless, you concede defeat and admit that your students are inferior to mine. We mustn't admit defeat. Even if we have to give it our all, we will definitely win. Hearing the plain mockery in the other party's voice, Xianxia and the others clenched their fists and their faces flushed red. If they were to really admit defeat like that, they wouldn't be able to uphold their pride in the academy in future. Admit that my students are inferior to yours. Zhong shook his head. You must still be dreaming. HMPH. Since that's the case, let's continue. I request that you get down from the ring. Zhu Qian flung his robe. For a teacher like you to interfere in a battle among students, aren't you bullying the weak? Don't be in such a hurry. Zhong Xian smiled. I am not admitting defeat, but I didn't say that I will allow our students to continue competing. You wish to stop the duel? The student dueling platform has already begun, and you don't have the right to stop it. It is too late to regret. Zhu Qian harumphed. My students' decision is my decision. Since they decided to challenge the student dueling platform, there's nothing for me to regret. Zhong Xian looked over. However, I think that a mere student dueling platform is too uninteresting. Why don't we conduct a teacher dueling platform? Just that. Do you dare to accept the challenge? What? Challenge the teacher dueling platform? Is that fellow insane? Is there something wrong with his head? Teacher dueling platform means that the students challenge the teacher. It is already difficult for those students of his to achieve victory in the student dueling platform. Yet he wants to challenge the teacher dueling platform? Isn't he daydreaming? Upon hearing Zhong Xian's words, the teachers and students present in the student bureau were dumbfounded. When a student is dissatisfied with a teacher, he can challenge all of the students under him via student dueling platform to force him to admit his mistakes. On the other hand, teacher dueling platform meant that a student would be challenging the teacher directly. If he were to lose, admitting defeat would be one thing, but the dignity of the teacher would be sullied. Of course, given that the cultivation realms of the students are far beneath that of teachers, it is impossible for students to win in a normal duel. For the sake of fairness, the teacher has to lower his cultivation realm down to that of the student in a teacher dueling platform. Even so, the fight could not be considered to be totally fair. Being able to become teachers, their experience and grasp over the flow of battle are obviously far superior to that of mere students. Even if they were to duel at the same power realm, it was impossible for a student to emerge victorious over a teacher. Zhao Yue and the others all staggered and nearly fainted on the spot. They thought that they had been audacious to challenge the student dueling platform. Yet, Zhong Laosha managed to top them and requested for the teacher dueling platform instead. You must be joking. Even though this Zhu Qian Laosha wasn't exceptionally powerful among the teachers, barely reaching Fighter 4 Dan Pigu Realm primary stage, he was still a true teacher of the academy. He wasn't someone a bunch of Jushi realms could defeat. Teacher dueling platform? You want your students to challenge me? Zhu Qian looked as though he had heard the most hilarious joke in the world. Why? Don't dare to. Zhong Xian looked at him. Ha ha, you are truly courting death. Zhu Qian burst into laughter. Fine, I'll agree then. If you win, I will give you 10 breath forging beads. However, if you were to lose, I won't demand any items, you just have to kneel down before me. Chapter 150. Imparting Spear Art. All right. Anything will do as long as you don't go back on your words. Zhong Xian chuckled and agreed. Zhong Laosha. Hearing him make such a decision, Zhao Yue and the others panicked. Are you pulling our legs? They had improved significantly in the last few days, but defeating a teacher in a duel is impossible. Agreeing so readily, isn't it akin to admitting defeat? Since you're so confident, let's do it then. Are they going to take on me all at once or go one by one? Zhu Qian said with a grin. Zhong Xian only had 5 students in total. Even if he were to suppress his cultivation, they would still not be a match for him. Taking turns? You're thinking too much. Given your strength, any one of my students would be able to easily defeat you. Zhong Xian shook his head. You. Seeing that the other party was looking down on him like that, Zhu Qian's face darkened. Lazy to bother with the fellow, Zhong Xian turned his attention to Zhao Yue and the others. Meeting his gaze, his students felt extremely anxious. They weren't even able to win in the student dueling platform, and now they had to challenge the teacher. The few of you hadn't fought previously. If I let you challenge Zhu Laosha, it truly is bullying the weak. Zhengyang, you will face him. Zhong Xian looked around and then casually pointed at Zhengyang. Hearing those words, the surrounding crowd almost fainted. Brother, is it all right for you to be putting on such a big show? Even if you really wanted to boast, it should be realistic, right? Putting aside Xianxia's abilities, he had just fought several opponents and is running low on stamina. Didn't you witness that he could not even move his spear anymore? He might not be able to kill even a chicken now, yet you want to pit him against Zhu Qian? Furthermore, bullying the other party? Bullying the heck. Looking at the fellow's condition, even if Zhu Qian didn't make a move, he probably would fall by himself in no time. Not only did the others put on confused expressions, even Xianxia's mouth was twitching. Teacher, He was about to go insane. Zhong Laoshe, can you stop pulling such pranks? He knows how much he is worth, and he wouldn't even be able to fight any student who comes his way this moment. Needless to say, Zhu Qian Laoshe. Even if he were to suppress his cultivation to that of a fighter 1 dan, it is still impossible for him to emerge victoriously. Just as he was about to inform Zhong Laoshe of his physical condition, before he could speak, the other person's calm voice sounded once more. Don't feel happy yet, it isn't too late to celebrate after defeating this Zhu Laoshe. Happy? Happy my foot. I am on the verge of tears, can't you tell? Xianxia's body staggered and he looked as though he would faint at any moment now. Courting death. Catching sight of this scene, Zhu Qian thought that Zhong Xian was doing this intentionally to shame him. His mouth twitched in rage and anger gleamed in his eyes. Before the fight, I will teach him a new spear art. Surely Zhu Laoshe will be fine with it. Ignoring the strange looks the others shot him, Zhong Xian asked Zhu Qian. It's a little too late for that. Zhu Qian harumphed. It doesn't matter whether it is late or not. It would suffice as long as it is enough to defeat you. Zhong Xian smiled. He walked to Xianxia and said, Here, teacher will teach you a spear art. Look carefully and learn. After which, he took the spear from the other party's hands, and with a slight tremble of his palm, stabbed forward in a crooked trajectory. The move appeared to have no depth to it, looking like a random movement. It didn't bear the slightest resemblance to a spear art. It seemed like a casual, playful stab. This fellow. Is he joking? You call that spear art? The spear art of an aroused boar meeting a sow would even be better than that. I've seen people who swindle their own parents, but this is my first time seeing a teacher swindle his own student. Xianxia is probably done for. To have met such a teacher, he is doomed no matter how talented he is. Zhong Xian taught Xianxia before everyone's eyes, and everyone saw the move clearly. For a moment, their minds were unable to keep up with the situation. Do you call that spear art? Even the technique a cleaner used to sweep the floor is several times more profound than that move of yours. Have you grasped it yet? Ignoring the discussions in the crowd, Zhong Xian looked at Xianxia. Yes. Xianxia wanted to cry. Does such a move even need to be learned? He first came into contact with the spear when he was 6. Any random move in the books is far superior to the one his teacher just taught. All right, since you have grasped it already, go and defeat Zhu Laoshe. Zhong Xian nodded his head, gently dusting Xianxia's body. Hearing his teacher's instructions, Xianxia was about to cry when he felt Zhong Laoshe's palm on his shoulder. A surge of zhenqi flowed through his meridians. The zhenqi was extremely dense and pure. All clots in its path fell apart immediately and he felt the shackles on his body being removed. As though having eaten a nutritious tonic, all fatigue vanished and he felt refreshed. Fatigue is just like an illness, and it is often caused by the blockages in one's meridians. Under Zhong Xian's pure zhenqi, it wasn't difficult to clear those blockages. Don't resist me. Follow the movement of my zhenqi and adjust your breathing along with it. He was still feeling surprised at Zhong Laoshe's actions when he heard his voice sound beside his ears. Knowing that his teacher would never do him in, Xianxia focused his attention hurriedly and adjusted his breathing. Catcher! 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 The zhenqi that gushed into his body flowed through his meridians in a unique path. In an instant, Xianxia felt as though he had become a spear that could pierce through the heavens. This is the inner breathing method of the spear art. No matter how foolish Xianxia was, he immediately understood what was going on. Regardless of whether it was a spear art or other battle techniques, on top of the moves, one had to know the corresponding inner breathing method. Only when one's inner breathing is aligned with the technique can one unleash the greatest might possible. Otherwise, it would look flashy at best when in fact there is little might behind the attack. Even though Xianxia had never come across any exceptionally powerful spear art, he had been living with the spear by his side since young. The spear had already become a part of him, and the moment he felt the inner breathing within his body, he understood that the technique is much more profound than any other spear arts he had learned before. The move looked so simple that even a fool would be able to learn it. However, when paired up with this inner breathing method, it was clear that it was a drastically simplified move that was packed with profound spear theories, a truly fine piece of art. To think that there would be such a powerful move in the world. In that instant, he appeared to be in a daze. He could hardly believe what was happening. Profound is no longer sufficient to describe the move. It is completely inconceivable that such a move could exist. Xianxia was still bathing in agitation when Zhong Laosha's voice echoed in his ear once more. Don't let your thoughts wander now. Try to get accustomed to this inner breathing method and align it properly with that spear art. Yes. Knowing that Zhong Laosha was imparting him an incredibly profound move, Xianxia focused his attention and tried to comprehend the inner breathing within him. Every single battle technique has an inner breathing method unique it. To learn a battle technique, one has to slowly open up all of the clogged meridians required for it. It is an incredibly tiring and long process, requiring long hours of effort. Using Xianxia as an example, he is only at Fighter 1 Danjushi realm and there is only inner breath in his body. He hadn't even formed Xianxia yet. It would have taken a minimum of 2 years' effort for him to open up the path required for the move. However, Zhong Xian's presence made all the difference. Zhong Laosha's Xianxia was extremely pure, and wherever it flowed through, the clots would immediately be undone, thus opening up the meridians. In less than 2 breaths, he had already opened up a smooth passageway for Xianxia's inner breathing of the technique. Just like that, I have mastered it. Upon sensing the smooth passageway through the inner breathing, Xianxia instantly understood this fact. In this short moment, he had completely mastered the move, as though he had been practicing it for multiple years. All right, keep this surge of Xianxia in your body. Continue feigning weak and powerless, and when the duel with Zhu Qian begins, you must strike him in full one blow. Zhong Xian's voice continued to sound. Comprehending the meaning behind his words, Xianxia nodded his head secretly. At the same time, he was perplexed. Why is Zhong Laosha's Xianxia able to remain in his body without creating conflicts in his body? The attributes of one's Xianxia would change according to the cultivation technique a fighter pursued. As such, when one's Xianxia flows into another person's body, putting aside the question of whether the former is able to help the latter to achieve a breakthrough, it is likely that a conflict would occur, and this would cause the receiver's cultivation to go berserk. Yet, Xianxia did not feel any discord or discomfort within when Zhong Laosha's Xianxia entered his body. He found it inconceivable. However, he also knew that this wasn't the time to be thinking about such things. After struggling to clasp his hand, he exclaimed, "Zhu Laosha, come." After which, he staggered up the ring. Xianxia appeared as though he would fall if a strong gust were to blow at this moment. Witnessing his condition, the crowd stared at one another, flabbergasted. The heck, are you serious? To fight a teacher using a spear art that even pigs can execute and a body that will cave in at any moment, how do you intend to win? Zhu Qian's face twitched as well. A thought suddenly popped into his mind. I fell for his trap. This fellow had probably intended to sacrifice this student from the very start to make a fool out of him. Imparting a move that can't even kill a chicken to deal with him. Isn't he implying that he couldn't even match up to a chicken? Zhong Xian, you sure are despicable. Thinking that the other party was intentionally humiliating him, Zhu Qian gritted his teeth and stepped into the ring as well. Zhu Laosha, please go easy on me. Portraying an extremely weak image, Xianxia struggled to lift his spear. Seeing how even such a simple movement could send sweat trickling down his forehead from fatigue, everyone was speechless. It had been long since someone challenged the teacher dueling platform. One wouldn't have imagined that the first one in years would be so eccentric. If word were to spread out, it would surely cause an uproar. Teacher, why don't I substitute Xianxia? Zhao Wei spoke, unable to endure it anymore. Just watch. Zhong Xian didn't explain the situation to her. Seeing how confident her teacher was, even though Zhao Wei was perplexed, she did not dare to question any further. Instead, she turned her attention to the stage. Go easy on you. Blame your beloved Zhong Laosha for your plight. Deducing Zhong Xian's intentions, Zhu Qian was infuriated. Then, I will apologize for my discourtesy beforehand. Knowing that the other party would not make the first move in consideration of the disparity between their identities, he didn't dawdle further and shot his spear straight at the other party. The tip of the spear was shaky, as though there wasn't any strength behind it. It was the trash move that Zhong Xian had just taught him. HMPH. Seeing that the other fellow had actually dared to use such a move against him, Zhu Qian felt even more furious. He suppressed his cultivation to the level of a fighter 1 Dan Jushi realm, and without using any weapon, faced Xingyang's attack barehanded. Facing a spear barehanded. Even so, no one thought well of Xingyang. They all thought that the fellow would be in for a beating. Now, noticing that the other party was underestimating him, facing him with bare hands, Xingyang's eyes lit up. He immediately triggered the surge of Xianxia which Zhong Xian left in his body earlier on, and in an instant, his disposition changed. If he were a tame lamb a moment ago, he would be a ferocious tiger at this moment. Boom! The spear shot straight toward Zhu Qian's chest. What? Zhu Qian's eyes narrowed. He felt an overwhelming sense of danger from that attack. Thank you for listening to Panda Audiobooks. If you love what you hear and want to support my work, check out the PayPal link in the description. Every bit helps. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notifications bell to stay updated with all our latest audiobook chapters. We'll see you in the next one.